Mr. X with the Extreme Channel here with something no one has ever seen before. That's right, this is a custom, never done before, Wolverine X-Force version where he's killed a bunch of people. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. Having a little bit of fun at the intro here. I actually have, as you saw, another amazing Wolverine X-Force vs. Ninjas piece. And this piece, completely different, just as cool. Now this is a custom, which means it's a private unlicensed commission, usually numbering less than 100. Usually. We'll come back to that. And this is Wolverine when he was part of the X-Force. Most of you watching probably understand the storyline behind that. X-Force is kind of a spin-off team from the X-Men. Some of the original X-Men were in it. Obviously Wolverine. I do own a few other pieces within the X-Force realm. And despite the fact that I have another X-Force Wolverine sculpted by the great Franco, just like this one, I wanted to pull the trigger on this guy for a few reasons. He's my first purchase from this custom group, and unfortunately, no, I can't give you any information about it. And they're doing an entire X-Force line. Now this is the only one I've actually bought, but looking at it right now, kind of a spoiler for the review we're about to do, it is excellent and I wish that I actually got more. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to jump into an extreme review. We're going to look at the design, the sculpt, the paint. Is this collectible worth the money I paid for it? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the concept of this piece. Now with concept, that means, does it look cool? Does it tell a story? While I don't know the specific source material, or even if there is source material about this, it still looks pretty badass. You have almost like this Star Wars Death Star type spaceship base. And I doubt that's what it is, but that's what I kind of feel when I look at it. Covered in grays and blacks, and on top of it are two armored soldiers that almost look like robots. When I was actually opening up the box, which we'll show later, I thought some of these bodies were Wolverine and he had an alternate torso. However, these are two assumably assassins, and like I said, they look like robots. We can tell they're not, as one actually has blood coming out of him. And Wolverine is on top in an extremely dynamic pose. In a few days, you're actually going to see a video of the top 30 dynamic statues. This one would have made the cut if it was there when I actually filmed and edited that video. But he's in a very dynamic pose. He has a number of switch outs. He just slashed these guys all up, even though they're in very heavy body armor. He's in his traditional X-Force outfit, jumping over them, his claws extended. Right now, the switch out you're looking at, he has a sword with kind of berserker rage going on with this particular portrait. And again, has a lot of different switch out options for that portrait. But this just looks cool. I like a lot of what's going on here. Very cool concept, very different. Like I said, it's crazy that I have another X-Force Wolverine sculpted by the same sculptor. That's a diorama. I would consider this a diorama. It actually has 3 full-size characters on it, and I believe that one has 5. Both are awesome. And like I said, I almost get like a futuristic vibe from this, especially from the base. To me, that's pretty cool as well, and it's pretty different. Now, one thing you do see about this has massive size, and not just because of the different characters and him lunging out, but the base itself is huge, and we'll talk about that in design in a second. But for the concept, I think it's really cool. What else is really cool is they're doing an entire line. There's actually an X-23 that's following this, where she is also killing the same type of soldiers. So for the concept, I give it actually a 4 out of 5. Really well done. Very different than your typical Wolverines. I like the fact that it's X-Force. And they didn't offer this in any other variants. A lot of times you'll see that they'll offer it in the X-Force variant or the brown costume or the yellow costume. So this is X-Force only, so I like that they're staying true to that. Now with design, there's some negatives and some positives. First, let's look at the unboxing of this big sumbitch. It was a pretty heavy box. Most of the weight actually is in that long flat base. Now the art box had pictorials on every single side in the different poses and switch outs of the statue, which even though I don't like art boxes, I do appreciate that this was an option. Standard custom black foam. It actually was 3 layers, tri-layered. Here's the first layer, followed by the second layer, and hopefully you guys can figure out that this is the third layer. Now, I did have a break. It's not a big deal, but this hand right here actually looks like it did break off on the bottom. It's going to be an easy fix with glue because the key is right there, so I can definitely get past that. There is kind of a seam line issue right here. Check this out. So you do see this from the back, and then you see a little bit below the shoulder pad, you see some of the smooth area. Again, you can only see that from the back, so not a huge issue. And you know, honestly, there's so many angles you can display this from that look good. It looks good like that, like that, like that, like that. Well, kind of like that. So it would be a good centerpiece, and it almost has to be. So the width of the base is about 15.5 inches wide, give or take. And keep in mind, there's things that hang off, like the gun right here. The depth of it is 22 inches, plus his claws stick out. But again, I don't think you would display it straight on. You might, I guess. And the tallest point is 21 inches. Unless you have the sword display, then it goes all the way up to 21 3/4. Give or take. I don't like how much room this takes up. So regarding scale, when we say scale, okay, this is half scale. That means it's half the size of a live human being. This is what they call 1 3.5. So that means it is somewhere between 1/3 scale and 1/4 scale. And I think that's too big. They should have went 1/4 scale with this. How much room it takes up, I think that's actually a negative to the design. However, I do like the dynamic engineering of this. It looks like it's a photo caught in the middle of action. And some of that we know we'll see with some of the battle damage with Wolverine, because he heals instantly and some of these wounds aren't healed. So this is in the middle of the fight, especially how you see some of these guys falling over. They just fell over, still have their arms up, still have their guns up back here. So I like the fact it's almost like a frozen photo. Now, it also has a ton of switch outs. So here's the portrait you've been looking at. So this is your standard Wolverine portrait with a cowl. I'm not a huge fan of this expression, but I think it works really well with the statue. And then you have a cowled face with big mutton chops. This is probably my least favorite. Then you have a classic stoic Wolverine. And I swear to God, I have 7 other portraits that look just like this because they're sculpted by Franco. I even put them side by side. They're very, very similar. And then you have the battle damaged one. And this is probably the one I'm going to display because it's so different. And again, this really tells the story that this is in the middle of the fight. With his right arm, he can have his claws extended. Or lifting his claws up more towards his face. Left arm, very similar, claws up towards his body a little bit. Or a sword. So here's some different shots of the different switch out options all together. And honestly, I think all of them are great options. This is going to be one where I definitely keep the switch outs available because I don't know what I want to display. So design, I think they did a lot of things right. So I think a few of the things I don't like the size or the seam line back here, are overtaken by a lot of the good stuff they did. It's 4 out of 5 on the design for this piece. For paint and sculpt, so much going on. Let's dive into a video review and kind of a spoiler. A lot of it, most of it is really, really good, both the paint and the sculpt, and I like the fact that there's a lot of different things going on here. A little bit of opportunities with the paint that we'll look at. First thing I want to do is show you guys these portraits. You know, one thing I did like with the cowled versions, they did do red eyes. The cowl's pretty clean. You're going to see that. There's not a lot of texture on the top of the cowl or even the sides, which is not typical with Wolverine, but you do see the seam lines. The paint job around the mouth and the hair and teeth is done very well. He's a little too gummy right there for me on this portrait. I probably will never use this portrait. This is the one that looks very similar, especially the hairstyle. They did add some blue in the hair, which kind of contrasts really well with the statue. But this is kind of the portrait most people want to look at. You see the detail in there. You can see his adamantium skull. Not really too much blood around there. I would have liked to see it a little bit more bloody. Would have been my taste. He has a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow all on the bottom of his chin there. But great portraits. We'll look at the other one when we get to the top. Take a look at this, as I said, kind of spaceship-like base. Futuristic facility of some type. And the subtle grays and blacks they use, like I said, it's just crazy how well it contrasts everything. There's a little bit of a silver tint on the soldiers that you're gonna see. But as I said, the base looks nice, takes up a lot of room. Check out the soldiers. I love this body armor that they're wearing. Very futuristic, makes them look like a robot. Those red nodules on there, just take it to the next level. You can see that they have knives and guns. And this is how we know they are not robots. You see right there. So these are just some massive body armor they put on to fight Wolverine, which is kind of stupid because he has adamantium claws. But they did a great job with the shading, the sculpt of these guys. And you can tell this is much bigger than a traditional 1/4 statue. But even like, look at their boots laced up here. Look at the detail on those laces, the texture on the boots, really well done. The guns look good. Again, very futuristic looking. Then when we get to Wolverine, look at this sculpt. The straps, the texture on his boots, the tread on the bottom. And again, it's mainly just blacks and grays, despite the little silver armor that they have down here, but it still looks great. His uniform has some of these holes in it to give it kind of a textured pattern, and then you see these lines running through the sides, the seams running up the side, a few folds. The boots look fantastic. He has these knee pads on the front. Metallic knee pads. I'm trying not to get hit by his claws. A few battle damage. So you have holes, whether it was a gun or knife. The blood looks pretty decent. Looks very fresh, like it just happened. Again, there's kind of that area I was talking about earlier. The black, I like how shiny it is. Not a ton of texture on this Wolverine, and I think I like that. You do see a little bit on the shoulder pads here, a few scratches. Here's some more blood on the front. Great anatomy. I like how it even shows in twisting in the abdomen there. One thing I think that's amiss is the paint on the arms here. They didn't really add too much blue to the veins, and the hair just, I'm not digging it. The hair needed to be a little bit darker. So it's almost like they forgot to paint some of the details on there. His gauntlets on his arm look fantastic. The claws and the sword are all very heavy metal. Again, here you see more straps that hold his gauntlet on. The sword hilt looks great. Again, very futuristic looking. Shiny. Great job on the biceps. Now check out his portrait. It's something about the expression around his mouth that I'm not digging, but the paint job is done very well. Again, I love those red eyes, a little bit of texture on these fins right here is what I call them. Very good job on this. I like it a lot more than I thought I would, and I try and avoid in-progress pictures because I can feel pretty excited like I am right now. Good thing I wore pants today. So some shots for you guys. So I'm kind of on the fence between a 3 and a 4 for the paint, but I think one thing that they did phenomenally is there's so much gray and so much black, but it's not too monotonous, and I really appreciate that. So I think for that reason, I'm going to bump it up to a 4 out of 5 on the paint for this piece. Sculpt, on the other hand, is more of between a 4 and a 5. The sculpt is phenomenal. I really love these soldiers. There's not much that I saw that was like, man, that was really a big miss. So I think the sculpt, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, especially with all the different display options that you can do. Now we're going to talk about value on this piece. So this guy was $1,200 or $1,250, I can't remember, and shipping was like $300. Took a few months to get here because it was economy shipping. So you're $1,600 all in. Now, for a 1/4 or almost a 1/3 scale piece, that is a little bit pricey. But again, you have 3 different characters in here. So it's a custom. Now, edition size. Now, I said typically they make less than 100. Usually it's 50 or 60. They made 118 of these. That's kind of a turnoff for me as a buyer. When I buy customs, I really like the edition size more to be around 40 or 50, maybe 60 or 70 at the most. But it is a turnoff they made 118 of these. So I would have liked the price to be a little bit lower, despite the fact there is a lot going on. So I think the value is right at about 3 out of 5. I think this will be a sought-after statue because it is done really, really well. But high edition size, high price always is a knock on that. All right. So does this statue have the X factor? Yes, it's an X-Force piece, but is this an amazing, a wow statue? I really don't like the size. That's really bugging me because this really takes up the room of 2 different statues. It is a centerpiece. It would be awesome if I could get a centerpiece table for all my awesome Wolverines like this one and Soldier and Samurai. I do think I will have this kind of in like a timeline. So if you're interested to see what that looks like, make sure to check out the Extreme Channel Facebook page. The link is in the description below. Make sure you not only check that out, but follow it. I think this is an X statue. I think this is a 5 out of 5. That's not a cumulative overall score, but just kind of when I look at it, is this pretty badass? Am I very satisfied with it? Absolutely, I am. They did a fantastic job, especially this is their first piece. The size and the price are really the only big negatives that stand out on this. But you do get what you pay for as well. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to see some of my other custom Wolverine statues, there's a playlist right there. I have tons of other cool stuff like this coming in, so make sure to hit that Mr. X logo and that bell notification. But I will talk to you tomorrow while I stare at this big sumbitch. Take care.